Can you hear me, young man?
Yes, sir. Emilio Castillo, band leader for Tower of Power, 56 years, right here in Youngstown, Ohio, waiting for the bus to take off to Rhode Island tonight.
All right. Waiting for the bus. We like it. All right. We just had Billy Gibbons on, too. So,
Oh,
yeah.
my old tour manager works with him.
I bet you know just about everybody. So, it is Tower of Power coming back July 19th and 20th, Friday and Saturday, 6:30 and 9, two shows a night at the Blue Note. This is, as the late great Tom Moffat used to say, one of Hawaii's favorite bands. And we're thrilled to have the founder, sax monster, epic storyteller, guest many times on the show. We're so grateful for and for his good health and great humor and stuff. Emilio Castillo, welcome back, my friend. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Dave. Good to be with you again. And I miss Tom Moffat.
Yes, well, Tom was he had that energy, and it's fun to always reference his voice, and I always remember those intros. You know, how can you forget that? I'm sure you heard it many times. Big smile on your face.
Yeah, priceless.
Yeah, it totally was. So for anyone completely unfamiliar, because and that's a good lead into it, because this is a band that has had a strong connection to the islands for a long time. And before we start tapping into Emilio's considerable storytelling gifts for the regulars, and then for people who are, if they're possible, they're totally new to your experience. Give a little preview. What's in store this time? The big return to Hawaii of Tower of Power.
Well, Tower of Power's been together 56 years, but this year, some big changes happened. Our drummer of many, many years, possibly our most famous member, David Garibaldi, stepped down off the road. And we also had a problem with our singer, Mike Jarrell, with his voice, and I needed a singer really bad. And so, by God's grace, got these two new young guys that stepped in.
Hmm.
Peter Antunes on drums, just killing it. And the most amazing singer I think we've ever had. His name is Jordan John. He's from Toronto, and we actually, Doc and I knew his dad back in the 70s. We used to sit in with his band, the Lincolns. And so, yeah, he was aware of us growing up. He actually told me that he played the Back to Oakland record so much that his dad had to take it away from him.
Well, I like.
So we got some new young energy. We also got this great lead trumpet player, possibly the greatest lead trumpet and trombone player that we've ever had since Mick Gillette. Really great. His name is Dave Richards, just a killer.
Awesome. Well, that's like a real. I like the family thing. There's so many of these people whose parents were, artists back then, and now they're sort of keeping it alive, playing, in bands, whether it's like Chicago. So many bands have some sort of connection like that, but that's cool for you. And you guys also, when it comes to the number of shows and the set list and stuff, how do you approach playing? Because you've got all that you mentioned back to Oakland. There's so many songs, and whether it's I'm still a young man or whatever. There's so many things that get people a connection to the group. How do you set up the show each night? Is it something that you move around, or is it locked in, or do you improv it kind of like Grateful Dead Fish style?
I've had to lock it in for most of the early part of this year because I had new guys, and we had to get them accustomed, to the show. And so just now, in the last couple of weeks, we've worked up all these other songs, and so now I'm changing the set nightly.
Oh,
We like to keep it interesting, but when you have that many new people all at once, it takes a little time to get them to the point where they go, okay, now we can add a tune, now we can add a tune, now we can add another tune, and we're getting there now. We added two this week. We're doing "Knock Yourself Out," which we haven't done in years. It was
oh.
always a big closer for us, and we're doing a song called "Clean Slate" from the self-titled Tower of Power album. That we haven't done that much over our career, but we were doing it about 20 years ago, and Jordan came in. He said, "Man, what about Clean Slate? I think I could really sing Clean Slate because he has a voice kind of like Lenny Williams,
Hmm.
And, so he digs those tunes."
Right, it could lend itself to different eras of of your career and different people in the band and their unique sound. It's cool. You were talking about playing with these guys relative long time ago, back in the 70s or whatever. I was checking out some of the incredible concert posters from your career, knowing that sometimes they can inspire a session of your epic storytelling. I wanted to drop a few of these. I did some research. And if you don't have a story, you just say, nope, I can't even remember it. But
All right.
I have this one framed, and this is back in the Bay Area. So this is November 26th through the 29th of 1970 at the Fillmore West. And it is a huge Fillmore poster that had two weekends, and you guys are on the right side of it. And it's got Sha Na Na, Elvin Bishop, and then Tower of Power. The week before, it had been Love with Arthur Lee, the James Gang, and Black Sabbath.
Yeah, I remember those shows really well because at the time, Sha Na Na was huge. They had done Woodstock,
Right?
and their show was really exciting, and they had all that sort of theatrics, which was, sort of different for the time because, from the middle of the 60s all the way up until, the early 70s, it was all about, the hippie thing and people just wearing whatever they want. And here comes Sha Na Na wearing gold lame and doing all these dances, and we loved them, and they loved us. And we became quite friendly. And at the time, we had a steady Monday and Tuesday night gig at this little club in downtown Oakland in Jack London Square called the On Broadway. And Lenny, the tenor sax player from Sha Na Na, and a couple of the other guys too would come down, but Lenny came quite a bit. And whenever they were in town, and he'd, come to the Broadway, and he would sit in with us, and yeah, they were great guys, and they were a great band. And Elvin Bishop, I mean, I cannot tell you how many times we played with the
Yeah.
Elvin Bishop band, all different forms of Elvin Bishop's bands over the years. We knew Joe Baker, who sang with him for years. Um, I'll tell you a funny story about Elvin Bishop. We played the Whiskey a Go-Go together.
Wow.
And at the time, he had the Pointer Sisters singing background for him.
Oh,
And they were kind of like his they were the hired guns for Elvin, so it was like we had the horn section, he had the chick singers, and so we're doing and we always did battle. I mean, Elvin and us, it was always a battle. We were trying to take him out, and he was trying to take us out. And any given night, wherever we were playing in the Bay Area or wherever, sometimes he would do really great, sometimes we would do really great. But this particular weekend gig at the Whiskey a Go-Go, he had the Pointers, and they sounded really good with him, and they had the looks and the dance moves. And then we'd come out, and of course we had the big horn section and the high energy funk. But right in the middle of the gig, well, actually, I think it was the first night. We knew the Pointer Sisters really well. And so we said, why don't you come up and sing Knock Yourself Out?
wow.
They were like, yeah. And they had done it before, but Elvin got really upset. And they had a big fight, and they quit.
Oh,
For the rest of the weekend, they sang with us. So we had his hired guns and our horn section.
whoa. That's what I mean, folks. This cat is just you can get a story out of him very, very easy. Here's one. I don't know if this has. I mean, this is a lot of people on there. First, make sure I'm pronouncing it right. Kezar Stadium. Is that how you pronounce that place?
Yeah, you're talking about the snack benefit?
Doobie Brothers, Graham Central Station, Jefferson Starship, Jerry Garcia and Friends, The Miracles, Joan Baez, Santana, Tower of Power, even Neil Young in March of '75. That is the show, my brother.
Yeah, the snack benefit, SNAC, right?
Yep, you hit the
Program through that benefit concert. It had something to do with saving something with education for kids. I'm not sure if it was saving music classes for kids or just saving kids schooling, but it was a charity event that Bill Graham threw. And I remember Bob Dylan was there,
oh
and also Marlon Brando. And it was quite a gig, And I remember we did "Sparkling in the Sand," which was this really mellow song from our first record that had a flute on it, And I thought we played it really horrible. It was outdoors. It was hard to get the flute in tune, and the vocals I thought really suffered. And somebody recorded it, and like you can listen to that all over the internet. But it sounded much better than I thought it did when we played it.
Right. Okay. So it didn't really sound like that in retrospect. What a cool gig though, and that's a big stadium show. There's one that's kind of touching on a local level. And obviously, I'm sure about the heartbreaking disaster last year in Lahaina. And you played a show in Sunday, December 21st, 1980. 4 p.m. till sunset, Lahaina Civic Center. Can you remember that?
Lahaina Civic, huh?
Don't remember. It's okay. It happens. I mean,
Yeah, no, I don't remember.
you
But I
got,
tell you what, man, I take my wife. We usually go a week early or a week after the Honolulu gig, and we stay in Maui because a friend of mine lets me use his condo there. And I was so upset about what happened there. I couldn't believe it for one, and I've sent some money over there to help with the charities, and I continue to do that. And also, I'm a member of the recovery community, and they had a wonderful clubhouse there for recovery meetings.
mm,
And my wife and I had gone there several times, so I've been sending money to them too to try to get them to build it back up, and that was such a sad thing.
it was a very sad thing, and meaningful that you would comment on it in that way, and still just so far from having anything really resolved there. But it did come to mind because of course you had so many different of these Hawaii shows, and you were talking about the that outdoor San Francisco one where Jerry was on the bill. Here in the islands, reggae is so gigantic. So I thought this was a really cool bill. It was Squaw Valley Summer Music Festival 1991. It was Jerry Garcia, Jimmy Cliff, and Tower of Power.
Where do you find these things, man? Yeah, that's probably when Jerry was doing some solo things, and
You don't remember that one either?
not really. I mean, I remember playing gigs where he was solo, and
No,
but no,
it's
I don't
easy
think
that you wouldn't remember. I think some of the people like with Taj Mahal, like you were talking about with Elvin, Taj is on a gazillion posters of shows with you over the years too, right? Would you say he's a regular, Taj?
we did a lot of gigs with him, and some of the most profound gigs that we did with him that I remember were the farm workers benefits. We played for Cesar Chavez all through California, and he would have bands like us, Taj Mahal, Boz Scaggs, Elvin Bishop, certainly Azteca, Santana, all the Latino bands, Malo, and they were all over California, to help the Broceros out. And Cesar Chavez, he was a great guy. Taj Mahal was on many of those bills, and he was always really great. And it was interesting with Taj because back then it's like, he's wearing overalls and, you'd see him with this big straw hat and like a large straw thing in his mouth, like some country bumpkin. And then we'd be talking backstage and I'd say, man, like, where are you from? He goes, man, I'm from the city, man. He was like an Oakland kind of guy, but he had this whole sort of look about him where it's like, country.
That's funny. And you say Oakland, and you were mentioning Santana. Oakland Stadium, 1976. It says, this is the order. I wonder if this is the order the poster ran at the top. Boz Scaggs, Santana, Tower of Power, Jeff Beck, Journey, Nils Lofgren. Day on the
Oh,
Green.
that's Dan the Green.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan the Green. That was like really special shows that
Bill would do.
Bill Graham threw at the Oakland Coliseum. And I remember doing that show. I remember also playing there with the Dead. We played there many times. I also, I was going to say something else, but I remember those shows really well. And they were like all day things, and people would come and they'd throw down a blanket on the ground and be dancing. And it was great. I love those Day in the Greens.
Yeah, they were a really interesting thing. And you did another Oakland big one of those, but it was 1971 CCR, Tony Joe White and Tower of Power.
Yeah, now that's that was a very special gig in my memory because Creedence Clearwater Revival took us out on tour. It was really our first major tour. We did 32 dates with them.
Wow.
And I'm not kidding you, Dave, when I tell you they kicked our butts for 31 of those dates. I mean, our record was out, but it was only a regional hit. In every city we went, the records weren't in the stores. And, we come out and people would be going, "Where's Creedence? We want Credence, And I remember at one point we were somewhere in Louisiana, and somebody dunked a beer and threw the can, and it hit David Garibaldi. And
Oh.
we had this sort of bone breaker tour manager at the time named Doug Kim San. He was actually from Hawaii. And I remember he jumped in the crowd and he was fighting with the guy. I mean, it was like it was a it was an honor to be playing with Creedence Clearwater, but it was difficult every single night, And we loved Tony Joe White. He had every night, he sounded great. Did Polk Salad Annie, and the highlight of the show every night was when he sang "Rainy Night in Georgia," which he wrote. But all along the way, all we could think about was the last gig of the tour is Oakland Coliseum, and we are going to kick their butts. And we got to Oakland Coliseum, and I tell you, we played and we took it to them, man. It made everything better.
I love it. that is a That's a really good one. That's cool when you have those kind of bills that are kind of inspiring. Like when I saw the Fillmore West, March 5th, 6th, and 7th in 1971, Aretha Franklin, King Curtis, and Tower of Power.
Yeah, that was a very special weekend. And it was interesting, because we had done that tour with Creedence Clearwater and there were no records in the stores. And, that's a common thing that happens to young bands. But we didn't know that. And we come back and we're all disgruntled. And we got in this big fight with Bill Graham. And in particular, our singer at the time, Rick Stevens, just insulted him to the point where Bill wanted to go out and fight him in the street. And I remember his lawyer, Kiva Christo, had his arms around Bill going, "No, Bill, no." And Bill's going, "Screw you, man. I'm going to, let's go right now in the street." It was like we got into such an uncomfortable situation with Bill. And during that whole year, we're trying to convince him that we're sorry for what we did and to get him to release us from the record deal so we can make a record because we were hot as a pistol. And even though, and this is the mark, the greatness of Bill Graham, even though we were having those difficulties with him, he knew Tower of Power was the best band to open the show for Aretha.
Mm.
And that was a huge show. I mean, it was a media event. And I think I probably told you this story before, but during the 3 nights, I think it was the second night, I was standing in the doorway of the dressing room backstage at the Fillmore West because there were so many reporters and disc jockeys and stuff in the dressing room. It was just packed. And so I'm standing in the doorway, and here comes Aretha. And she can't get through the door because I'm there. So I turned sideways, and we wound up being nose to nose in the doorway. And she says, "Tower of Power, my favorite band." And I just melted. And I remember, doing the gig, and we did really good. I mean, by that point, we were hot as a pistol, and we really did good every single night. And the highlight for us was when the weekend was over, they had this thing called the Pink section in San Francisco, which was basically the entertainment section of the San Francisco Chronicle. And I think it was Ralph J. Gleason that wrote, about the show and about the concert. He's saying, he talks about the show, and then he says the evening started with Tower of Power, and he praised us, and then he says, and after that, King Curtis and the Kingpins came on, and they opened with Memphis Soul Stew, and then he wrote, but Tower of Power had stolen his thunder.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, we kept that framed for a long time.
What a cool, and for a weekend, like you say, that had a lot of media attention, to have a nice souvenir of that media attention.
Yeah, it was King Curtis. King Curtis. Another interesting thing too. He had the Memphis Horns with him, and they were augmented. There were more than just the two guys. It was like five or six guys. And we had done a weekend before that down in L.A. the CBS convention, and we opened for Aretha down there, and we did really good there too. And when King Curtis played down there, the horn players were sitting down and the mics were far away. And when we played, we're standing up and, the mics are right on our horns. And by the next week, we got to the Fillmore. Boy, they had those mics right on the Memphis horns.
That is funny. And never again did you play or get an interaction with Aretha? I mean, what a nice thing for her to say.
No, I don't think we did. I mean, I remember, being with them in LA, the one gig at the CBS convention, and then the 3 nights,
It's great.
4 nights, I guess it was. I can't remember, but it was the weekend at the Fillmore West. I remember also, the other big band at the time that was like us, and they were actually more famous than us at first, was Cold Blood,
Oh yeah.
and they wanted to open for Aretha, but Bill knew it was best to have Tara Parr, but he did let them open on Saturday night. And I remember I was backstage, and they had stolen our trumpet player. We had this great trumpet trombone player named Mick Gillette,
Oh
and
yeah.
they had a lot of money and they were touring all over, and they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. He was trying to get out of the draft at the time. Everybody was trying not to go to Vietnam,
Sure.
and they said they'd hire him a lawyer and get him out of the draft, and they would buy him all new clothes from North Beach Leather, which was like the place to buy leather clothes. So anyway, he's playing with Cold Blood, and but he always missed us. I mean, he wound up coming back to us eventually, but at the time, whenever he was around and Cold Blood wasn't playing, he'd come and sit in. Well, during that weekend, he wanted to sit in with us, and I said, "No, that wouldn't be right because you're with Cold Blood now." And they were playing on Saturday night, and I was sitting behind the scrim, and I was listening to them. And one of the girls, Aretha, had the Sweethearts of Soul backing her up. And one of the girls from the Sweethearts of Soul came and sat next to me, and she's listening, and she goes, "They're good." I go, "Yeah, they are." And she goes, "But not as good as you." So yeah, those Aretha people, they were making me feel good all weekend.
As I said when I was bringing you on, my brother, never ever short on stories. I knew if I had enough posters that I looked through, I I'd find some of the ones, and you really did you did hit it. And the only two bands on here that I guess I'll just check if you ever, because I didn't see a poster with either of them. I guess that was why I was curious. Did you ever do a gig with Bob Marley?
Yes, we played with Bob Marley in Montreal,
Whoa.
and I remember walking with his manager down. Like we had played, and we did good, because we hardly ever played there, so they were sort of waiting for us. And I remember walking down towards the stage and their manager talking with us. But I don't have that many memories of it.
Okay, so no actual interaction with him so much,
No, 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 definitely not.
but still cool that you did do the gig. Wow. And then the final one would be Black Sabbath, who I had mentioned was with Love with Arthur Lee, the James Gang, and Sabbath. They are on that very famous Fillmore poster. Their only Fillmore Bill Graham style artwork. Did you ever play any gigs or have any experiences with Sabbath over the years?
No, not with Black Sabbath, but we played with Love a few times, and they were great. That was a great band with Arthur Lee.
Right. Yeah, big end, and that was a quite a show too. That was James Gang that still had Joe Walsh in the band too before Tommy Bolin.
But
Uh,
that's another sign of how great Bill Graham was. I mean, he would have bands like Black Sabbath and Love and Miles Davis. He did the most eclectic shows, man, and it really tweaked the collective ear of the Bay Area and eventually the whole world. Really, I mean, they opened the Fillmore East, and you did the same thing there. And pretty soon, all the big cities were doing rock ballrooms. I mean, you look at corporate rock the way it is today. It's all because of Bill Grant.
You have graced us with so many amazing stories, and it's always a pleasure. It's a founder, sax monster, epic storyteller. He's been with us so many times. Emilio Castillo from Tower of Power. Two nights, July 19th and 20th, Friday and Saturday, 6:30 and 9. Two shows a night at the Blue Note, as we were saying. Perhaps, certainly, Hawaii's most well-known promoter ever, the late great Tom Moffat, used to do his ads for this band and even introduce them or do some of his emceeing before the show. And he would say, "This is one of Hawaii's favorite bands." That was one of his lines that he'd say. So it's great to connect with you again and keep that Hawaii tradition alive. I hope you had fun and we're somewhat entertained as we went through the storytelling today.
Yeah, it's always fun to be with you, Dave. Thanks for having me again.
You're very, very welcome. And please stay safe as you travel. And great having you back on, Emilio. Big aloha.
Yeah, God bless. Bye bye.
God bless you.